Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Shaylee Show. So this video is piggybacking a little bit or a lot off of last week's video, which is book and reader etiquette, and last week's video was beginner friendly. And since AI has been a big thing lately, I thought, why not ask ChatGPT? I can never really say it right out loud. I say it right in my head. Anyway, I thought, why not ask ChatGPT about some of the reader and book etiquette that they thought should be or is / should be applicable to book and reading communities. So I have it pulled up right here on my iPad. It's really interesting. I'm gonna go through it piece by piece just because, say if I agree with it, if I disagree, if I'm kind of in the middle. So I just typed in book and reader etiquette and then sent it, and then it came up with, as I said, this whole thing. It says book and reader etiquette helps ensure a respectful and enjoyable experience for both the reader and others around them. Here are some key guidelines. Also, before I get any further, I want it to be clear I do not support AI in the arts and entertainment industries. I do not support AI in those industries. I understand where AI can be helpful, but it should not be in those industries. And I did say art as like an overarching thing. Getting back on track, etiquette for readers. The first point is handle the book with care, avoid bending pages, cracking the spine, or writing in borrowed or shared books. If you own your book, mark it as you please, but consider sticky notes or pencil for temporary marks. For this one, I definitely agree. I love in kind of like the hilarious way where it's funny enough, where it's like mark it as you please, but consider sticky notes or pencils and like don't mark it permanently. Where it's like at the end of the day, it's your book, so you can mark it as you please, temporary or permanent. It doesn't matter. It's your book. If it's your book, it's your book. If it's borrowed or shared, like ChatGPT says, don't mark it. Next one is borrowing books. If you borrow books, return it in the same condition. Don't lend out a book you've borrowed unless you have permission. Oh, I actually didn't think of that last part in my previous video. So in my previous video, I did talk about this, where if you borrow a book, return it in the condition you received it. And if it is damaged, usually that's accidental, but if it is damaged, offer to replace it or offer to help replace it. But with it saying, don't lend out books you've borrowed unless you have permission, I feel like that's common sense, because it's like, even if you have permission, I feel like it's just common sense to not lend out books you're borrowing, because you may lose it and that'll be a bummer for the person you were borrowing it from. So end of the line, just if you're borrowing a book, don't lend it to someone else. Quiet reading spaces, whether in libraries or public spaces. This is the next point. Keep noise to a minimum. Avoid loud talking, cell phone use, or disruptive behaviors. This one I feel like it's a little bit tricky, because I feel like most public reading spaces are libraries. It says quiet reading spaces, but most public reading spaces are bookstores or libraries. And I feel like in any other location outside of your home or a library, it's hard to control the noise conditions of that location, and it's not really on the people around you to be quiet when you're not in a library or bookstore. Okay, it's a little bit tricky when it's a bookstore, even, because even though that's a book space, a bookish space, people are going to be talking, because it's a bookstore, it's not a library. If you want somewhere quieter to read, go to a library or get like headphones to plug in or earplugs, or just don't read in public. I know that sounds a little bit harsh, but like it's kind of like one of those situations where, like I said, if it's anywhere other than a library or your home, it's hard to control the noise volume, the noise is going on in the background. The next one is food and drink. Be cautious about eating or drinking while reading, especially if the book isn't yours. Spells can cause permanent damage. It's not spells can cause permanent damage. Spells do cause somewhat permanent quote-unquote damage depending on what it is you're spelling. I think this is more so like ChatGPT took it as like a personal, like, this is what you can do if you're getting into reading, you know, which isn't bad. I do think that some of these points are good, but at the same time, it's like, I think the way I took my previous video, last week's video, it was more so like community based, like what we can all do as readers, whereas this, like I said, it's more individual based and kind of sounds like it's hitting to or directed towards people who are newer to the reading community. Again, that's fine. So this next one has me chuckling a little bit. It says use bookmarks, avoid dog-earing pages, use a proper bookmark or even a slip of paper paper to mark your spot. This one, I feel like it is a situation where, again, if it's your book, do whatever the heck you want. You can dog ear your pages, whatever you want. If it's your book, at the end of the day, it's your book, and however you prefer. If it's someone else's book that, again, you're borrowing, do not dog ear the pages. But again, if it's your book, do whatever you want. So the last one it gives for readers is sharing thoughts. If discussing a book with others, be mindful of spoilers. Always ask if the other person has finished before discussing key plot points. If they're currently reading it, I would even say just ask where they've gotten to, because there might be key plot points that they have gotten to while not having finished the book yet. But 100% be respectful of and mindful of spoilers, and that not everyone has fully read a book. I did discuss this in last week's video. So there is this second section right here, and it's for group reading environments, e.g. in other words, book clubs or buddy reads even. I think this one is more so for like physical group reading situations, like a physical book club, or if you're doing a buddy read, you're meeting in person regularly. For the first thing for group reading environments, be punctual. If you're part of a book club or discussion group, arrive on time and be prepared. You want to arrive on time for anything, and you want to arrive even a little bit early so you're not like rushing to get there and you don't miss anything. I'm not part of any book clubs just because I like the idea of book clubs, but when I look at book clubs, they never choose books or genres that I personally am interested in and would want to read. I just don't do book clubs. In theory, I like them. Ideally, like I said, I like them, but in practice, not for me. The second one is respect differing opinions. Not everyone will have the same interpretation of a book. Engage in discussions respectfully and be open to other viewpoints. I feel like that's applicable even outside of a book club. Like, just be respectful that people will have different viewpoints of your books. Like, a lot of us engage in social media, Bookstagram, Booktube, BookTok, and at the end of the day, we just need to respect that some people like Fourth Wing, some people don't like Fourth Wing. Some people love ACOTAR, other people hate ACOTAR, and that's totally fine. And it is okay to engage in civil discussion where opinions differ. It's okay to have those discussions civilly and nicely. Going back to book clubs, the third point is contribute. I go either way, contribute. Anyway, contribute thoughtfully. When sharing your thoughts, be concise and allow others to participate. Encourage quieter members to share their insights. I do agree with that, where it's like, yeah, like you should have. I feel like most readers have thoughtful reviews of the books and why they do or do not like the book as a whole or certain parts of the book. That is definitely useful both in and outside of book clubs and group reading environments. And if you're in a book club, yeah, it can be nice to encourage the quieter members to participate, but if they don't want to participate really, or if they're not feeling as vocal or feeling like they can engage as much in one particular meeting, that's okay. The fourth point is to stay on topic. Keep discussions focused on the book and its themes. While tangents are natural, try not to derail the conversation entirely. I agree, but at the same time, like this point said, it says tangents are natural, where it's like I feel like it's okay to go fully into the tangent and then kind of circle back to the book. Not all tangents are random. The last one for group reading environments, book clubs, etc. It says be honest but kind. If you didn't enjoy a book, it's fine to express that, but do so in a way that's constructive and considerate of others' opinions. I agree with this one. I touch on it slightly differently in last week's video, where I was saying like it's okay to dislike a book, it's okay to hate the book, it's okay to say that and say why you dislike or hate a book, but don't disparage on a book and don't be just outright critiquing it without, like this point said, without giving constructive criticism of the book. And also, like this said, like considering other people's opinions. Like, yeah, some people like it and that's okay that they disagree with you, you know? Overall, I agree. It's really interesting, you know? Like I said, kind of closer to the beginning, I think AI can be helpful in certain situations. It shouldn't be in every situation. It should not be writing books. It should not be making art in any way, shape, or form. It shouldn't be in the entertainment industry. But I do think it has its uses, you know, if managed properly. So I'm going to do another little prompt by saying, because I mentioned bookish social media, I'm going to do bookish social media etiquette and send that little message. So it actually gave us 3 sections for bookish social media etiquette, which is very interesting. So the little initial blurb, I guess you could say, is bookish social media etiquette ensures that the book community remains a respectful and enjoyable space for everyone. Some key points to follow: general etiquette, avoid spoilers like mentioned previously, always use spoiler warnings when discussing key plot points, twists, or endings. Many platforms allow the use of tags or spoiler warnings. Use these tools to prevent ruining the experience for others. I definitely agree with that one. I know that Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, it has the spoiler warning tags. Goodreads and Storygraph have the spoiler kind of block out areas. I think it's a little bit better set up on the Storygraph. With Goodreads, you have to do like the little special type in thing, code thing, spoiler, and then spoiler after the spoiler, where you can just do that anywhere if you're including a spoiler in your review. Where the Storygraph, you have your review part, and then there's like a content warnings section, which includes trigger warnings, and then in that section also it includes a spoiler section where it'll be automatically blocked off by the app, by the Storygraph, and people can click on it and then click to see the spoilers. So it's a little bit better hidden, in my opinion, on the Storygraph than on Goodreads, but it is what it is. So the second point is respect differing opinions. Books evoke a wide range of emotions and interpretations. Engage in discussions thoughtfully, respecting the views of others even if you don't agree. I feel like I don't need to talk about that one too much because it was mentioned above. The next one is credit the author when quoting or discussing a book. Tag the author and publisher when appropriate. Always give credit where it's due. 100%. It does mention this later. It has a section for tagging authors and fellow readers, and this is a point that's brought up in that section. But if you're doing like a negative review, don't tag the author because that is rude, and authors are sensitive about their works. Don't tag them in negative reviews. The next point is respect review formats. When writing a review, ensure it's respectful even if you didn't enjoy the book. Avoid personal attacks against the author or fellow readers. Critique the work, not the individual. This one is like, I am kind of in the middle where it's like, yes, you want to ensure that your review is respectful. You don't want to attack the author or other readers. If you didn't like the book, you don't want it to personally attack the author or other readers. When it says critique the work, not the individual, I'm like 90% with this, because there are times and places where in their works, the authors obviously using some very negative imagery or using negative, I'm blanking on the word, themes, there we go, where it's obviously how the author feels and believes in whatever themes and imagery they put in their book that's negative. So I feel like it really is kind of it's one of those fine line situations where, yes, you don't want to critique the author, but when it gets to a point where it's obvious that the author believes in the negative themes and the negative ideals, then that's where it's like a little bit of a critique would probably be necessary. Also, this is a discussion that was happening a lot on threads where there was a thread posted saying if a book has a lot of grammatical errors, don't bring that up with the author and don't post about it on social media or in your review. I feel like that's a situation where, again, it's a fine line where, yeah, initially you should not take it to your review or to social media. The first steps for that would be to reach out to the author privately or reach out to the publisher privately saying, hey, this book has a lot of errors that I've noticed. And if it's also a situation where a lot of readers are noticing the grammatical errors and nothing's being done about it and there's no response from the author or publisher, then that's where it's a situation where, yeah, you might need to take it to your review or to social media, not in a negative way, but in a way where it's like, okay, enough of us readers are noticing the errors and noticing multiple errors, and this is our only way to reach out to the publisher and the author. But again, it's a situation where you need to do that respectfully and after reaching out to the publisher and author privately. Okay, where was I? Okay, so I just did the respect review formats. The next point is use appropriate hashtags. Use popular hashtags like Bookstagram, BookTok, BookTwitter. I'm not saying the hashtag for all those, but those are all hashtagged. To engage with specific communities. Avoid spamming or over tagging irrelevant posts. Like, I would phrase that last a little bit differently. I would say like avoid spamming. If you're looking at other bookish content on social media, I would say avoid spam liking a bookish content creator's content and over tagging irrelevant posts. I wouldn't call them irrelevant. I would just say avoid using irrelevant tags on your post. Use the most relevant tags. The next point is respect content creators. If you share a photo, quote, or review that isn't yours, always give credit to the original creator. Don't pass off someone else's content as your own. Again, I feel like this one is common knowledge like some of the others. I know that on Instagram, if you share someone's post to your story, that person who made the post gets a notification saying that their post was shared. And there's also that little section where it's like mentions in stories. But if you're sharing a post to your story, tag the person who posted it. This last one I feel like is really important, and it applies to the bookish community in general and not just on social media. It says to not pressure others, avoid pushing people to read certain books, share their progress, or join discussions they may not be ready for. Everyone reads at their own pace. Again, like I said, this can be applied to the bookish community in general and not just bookish social media. Not everyone has to share their reading goal or their reading progress. Not everyone has to even have a reading goal for the year. I know it's very popular to have reading goals, but at the end of the day, it's not important to have a reading goal as long as you're reading. And they also don't have to read certain books. Not everyone's going to read Etiquette or Fourth Wing. I was about to say Fourth Flame by combining the two titles. Not everyone's going to read those books, and that's okay. So the next little section, it only has 3 points. Reviews and recommendations. The first point is to disclose partnerships. If you're posting a sponsored review or received a free copy of a book, an ARC, not all free copies of books are ARCs. ARCs are advanced reader copies. Most of them are free, but you can get a free copy of the actual book. But if you're getting a free copy of a book, disclose it 100%. Transparency builds trust within the community. The next point is be clear with recommendations. When recommending books, make it clear if there are potential content warnings, trigger warnings, or controversial topics so people can make informed choices. Definitely, like that's the whole point with having a trigger warning section in your book. Very easily accessible, even if it's not in the book. Having trigger warnings very easily accessible, because it's about making informed choices and decisions at the end of the day, and not everyone can handle certain content. And the third point is avoid spoilers in the comments. When engaging with a book post or review, be mindful not to spoil the story for others who haven't read it yet. Again, that one goes out to like the don't spoil stuff, like avoid spoilers. Make it clear that there are spoiler warnings in your review, especially if you're doing it on social media like Instagram or YouTube or BookTok. So the next section is tagging authors and fellow readers. We discussed tagging authors a little bit earlier. Don't tag authors in negative reviews. While feedback is valuable, it can be hurtful if presented as harsh or in a non-constructive way. Tag authors only if you have something positive or insightful to share. Even if it's insightful, like because it's social media and because you don't know the author personally, even if it's a video review like on BookTok or here on BookTube, the author doesn't know you personally and you don't know the author personally, so you don't know how they're going to take certain words or certain intonations. So just don't tag the author in a negative review. Even if there's constructive criticism, don't tag them in a negative review. Tag them in positive reviews for sure, because they need that. The next one is tagging readers. Be mindful of tagging friends or fellow readers in posts. If you're tagging them in a challenge or recommendation, ensure they're comfortable with being tagged. Definitely, if they're a mutual of yours, then it might be like a mutual understanding that like I can tag you in posts or you can tag me in posts, like I said, if you guys are mutuals. But again, be mindful, they might not want to be tagged in every recommendation post or reading challenge post. The last little section has 2 points. It's book clubs and reading groups. We discussed this a lot in the book etiquette for the group reading environments, the book clubs, so I'm not going to go over this too much, but honor group rules, understand what the rules are and follow them, and then participate respectfully. This was a really interesting video to do, and it's definitely a bit longer than last week's video, quite a bit longer than last week's video, and because I did the 2 sides of it, the bookish community in general and etiquette around that, and then etiquette surrounding bookish social media. If there's anything you agree or disagree with or want to add, please do so in the comments. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video.